Hey everybody, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about Fallout 3 and the E3 showing and the ship party I got to attend. I was reminded of this when yesterday I was talking about not going to Fallout 2's ship party, and it made me go look up my notes because I know I went to Fallout 3's and it was an amazing party, and I will tell you about it. We even got some pictures. But the reason I'm wearing my glasses today is I found my notes. And rather than talk about those two things, I want to read you my notes on them because I want to put you into the headspace I was in. These were written back at the time, and so I will start with the dates on them. So, and before I start, let me just say that, it was really cool that, this was started off in 2007, so it's 10 years after Fallout 1 had shipped. I thought it was very cool that I got invited to these things. So once again, I'm going to thank Todd Howard and Pete Hines for extending this invitation. So first, let me start with the Fallout 3 E3 showing. On July 13th, 2007, I drove to Santa Monica, where that year's Electronic Entertainment Expo was being held in a hangar at the Santa Monica Airport and in various hotels around the city. I headed down to the beachside hotel called the Fairmont, where Bethesda had set up some private showings of Fallout 3 on the Xbox 360. I got to see a 45-minute demo of the game, and then I headed to lunch with lead designer Emilio Pagliarulo. I'm sorry if I messed up that name. Executive producer Todd Howard, and their vice president of PR, Pete Hines. We geeked out for an hour talking about the game and its predecessors. I liked what I saw, and I told them, when Leonard and Jason and I had imagined making Fallout into a 3D game back in '94, we imagined it looking very similar to what I saw that day. 10 years after Fallout shipped, I was seeing that dream made into reality. I was really excited, somewhat jealous, and a little sad. Fallout was not mine anymore. Many people would argue it was never mine, and they would be correct in a legal sense, and wrong in every other way. So that's what I wrote in July of 2007. So let's flash forward to October of 2008. And I will tell you about the Fallout 3 launch party. Bethesda threw a huge launch party for Fallout 3 on Thursday, October 16, 2008 at 9 p.m. at the Los Angeles Center Studios, which was a big movie studio and TV film studio in downtown Los Angeles. It's the studio where Mad Men was filmed, if you want a visual of the environment. The studio had 6 huge sound stages, a theater, a big club room, and a huge outdoor deck. The place was about 4 city blocks in size. So the Foo Fighters concert held later that evening was simply held on one street that they had roped off and erected a stage on. There were 4 separate parking lots, not including the VIP underground lot with its private entrance on a different street. I was not issued a VIP ticket, so I wandered in from the entrance that was nearest to my hotel. This was a serious party. I entered on a literal red carpet. The photographers, about 20 or so, looked up, shrugged, and went back to talking among themselves. About a minute later, Lauren Conrad from The Hills showed up behind me, and there was serious jostling among the photographers to get her picture. I didn't recognize her until they started calling out her name, trying to get her to look directly at the cameras. Along the red carpet were a couple big statues of power armor, similar to the ones in Fallout, but not quite the same, so I guess the Bethesda artists had tweaked the design a bit. There was also a big Airstream trailer surrounded by the Fallout 3 nuclear family, which were mannequins and vault suits. Bethesda was also projecting the Fallout 3 logo onto nearby office buildings at about the 10th or 15th story. So the logos were huge and would animate across the building faces. So no matter where you stood at the party, you could always see the logos moving out of the corner of your eye. You could not forget what party you were at, and I was sure this was the intended effect. I arrived in time to hear the Inkspots playing on a stage near the first bar. The original Inkspot members had passed away by 2008, but the lead singer was the son of the original member. I talked to them after their set. Speaking of bars, there were about 15 bars scattered all over the area. All of them were opened, and all of them were very well stocked. I got a drink and went back to listen to the Inkspots, and then I noticed that some of the Fallout 3 development team was nearby. I chatted again with lead designer Emil Pagliarulo, lead programmer Steve Meister, and a few artists, and then most of them walked away, but I was hanging out with Steve for most of the rest of the evening. At this point, around 10 p.m., it was very crowded. I estimated that there was about 1,500 to 2,000 people at this party. This was a serious party. The lead programmer Steve and I wandered around the club for about an hour. Steve was as amazed as I was at the sheer size and obvious expense of this party. There were Fallout decorations everywhere, from flat screens on the wall showing the new artwork to old-fashioned black and white TVs showing the 50s-style Vault commercials. There were 3 stations of 4 televisions, each one dressed up as a Radiation King brand television from the opening of Fallout. And by the way, it's also the same brand that Homer watched as a child in The Simpsons. You could play Fallout 3 on them as long as you liked, while waitresses brought a seemingly endless array of pre-made drinks and snacks. I didn't drink too much alcoholic stuff that night. I tried something like a hot Bloody Mary that was very strong, and then a different drink that was warm and frothy and milky. There were so many bars that none of them had long lines. A few times I went to get a soda or water. I was shocked at how many people were there and how much they were drinking. I could not imagine what this party cost just from the food, drinks, and studio rental alone. This was a very serious party. I briefly met Robert Altman, the CEO of ZeniMax, which was the parent company of Bethesda. He was there with his wife, Linda Carter of Wonder Woman fame, and she looked fabulous, especially for being 59 years old. And this comment was coming from a not-so-fabulous-looking 43-year-old gay man. I also saw Will Sasso from Mad TV and David Spade from SNL and Just Shoot Me. Sasso was really friendly and was chatting with a lot of people around him. Spade seemed to be going after the ladies, and at which point I noticed just how many gorgeous and apparently single women were there. I'm not sure, but I think they must have hired models to walk around and smile and look interested, because there were far more women at this party than I've ever seen at a game industry event. I briefly ran into Todd Howard and Pete Hines, and I meant to ask them many questions about the party, but they had to get up on the stage to make some announcements before the Foo Fighter concert. I had heard that there were a lot of stars there, but I didn't get to see them. Among the unseen guests were Gerard Butler, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Dane Cook, and Jeff Keighley. There was a special balcony filled with tables, and that had its own bar where most of these VIPs would disappear into. So I think they were up there for most of the night. I thought it was very cool, though, that Linda Carter spent most of the evening chatting with guests on the public deck. She welcomed people by name, and she seemed genuinely happy to be there, and I thought that was really classy. The Foo Fighters took stage at 11 p.m. They were fun and very loud. Dave Grohl congratulated the developers, saying that all game developers were living the American dream of doing what they wanted and getting paid for it. I could relate to that. And then he said something like, "Let's get this party going, fuckers." And the band started up. They did tons of their hits, one after another. It was super fun to see them live. But I had to move back a bit because it was just incredibly loud. Yeah, this is where you can call me Old Man Kane. I stayed at the party till about 1 o'clock in the morning, so I was there for about 4 hours. I said goodbye to Steve and I staggered back to the studio, tired and just a little bit tipsy. As I walked back to the hotel, I had time to think about how strange the path was that led me here. When I started Fallout 14 years before, it was me, alone in a room, trying to get sprites to move along a hex grid that was displayed isometrically. Now I was leaving a star-studded Los Angeles party filled with people who had no idea who I was, but seemed very happy with the new Fallout 3 game. I guess I felt happy that the Fallout IP was not collecting dust in a file cabinet somewhere, like Arcanum was and still is. But instead, a whole new generation of gamers were going to be exposed to Fallout for the first time. And there it was, a nagging part of me that wished I was more a part of it. So there. I hope you got 2 things out of today's video. I hope you got a really good look at where I was mentally and emotionally in 2007, 2008. A good idea of how I feel about Fallout 3. And just some insight into what it's like to be a game developer, kind of, I don't know how to describe it, a frontline games developer. The person who rolled his sleeves up and actually made the game. it was interesting meeting all these people there. But the person I connected most with was Steve Meister, who basically was, like me, a programmer who worked on this game and liked it a lot and was equally amazed at this party. It was amazing to see Fallout being treated so reverentially, and that there was obviously money being put behind it. And I was super happy that the IP was still going on. Yes, there was this sadness, and I admitted it. I had to tell Leonard Borowski later that when I said I walked away from Fallout in '98, when he and I and Jason, we all just left Interplay, and I said I was leaving it behind me, I told Leonard, yeah, I lied. There was a little part of me that was like, this is my baby, and it's been adopted. So, anyway, I hoped you liked that look into Fallout 3 events in the 2000s.